Last year, the Detroit Pistons hit rock bottom with a franchise-worst 14-68 record, enduring a brutal 28-game losing streak and even firing head coach Monty Williams after just 1 year. Fast forward to 2025, Detroit has already blown past with 37 wins and is fighting for a playoff spot first time since 2019. It's been one of the most dramatic year-to-year turnarounds we've ever seen from an NBA team, and I want to get into why exactly is that? Well, bringing in head coach JB Bickerstaff to instill a new identity while also retooling the roster with veterans, that results have been evident, but I would say at the heart of it has been Cade Cunningham's breakout this season and his ability to iron out those weaknesses he had the past season, one of those being his pull-up three-point shooting. Cade Cunningham would love to shoot three-point pull-ups off these screens, especially when a defender would go under, but he wasn't hitting it at a rate that warranted guarding him up. I went more into detail in my full video about Cade Cunningham, but to briefly talk about it more here, he's hitting this three-point shot off these screens at a very high clip. When defenders choose to go under, he has no hesitation in his ability to pick those spots and shoot that three, because if you're going to consistently go under, he's going to consistently splash threes in your face. And if you go over to try to overreact to if he's killing you with these three-point shots, this is where it can get really scary, because he can use that speed and his control of pace to get into the paint. He doesn't let defenders get back in front of him and read that second line defense for a lob or weak side passes. Jalen Duran has been capitalizing on these 2-on-1 advantages that Cade Cunningham consistently generates for this Detroit Pistons team. Because if Cade is now punishing opponents who go under screens or sag off him while still being a 6'6" guard with some of the best vision we've ever seen for a passer. On this possession, two actions are going on that eventually leads to a quality look. A Cade pick and roll while Beasley is setting a back screen for Holland to dive to the rim. Cade draws two on the ball, and then Stewart does the smart thing to go re-screen for Beasley to pop out for the three. And let me quickly pivot to Beasley, who's become one of the most underrated signings of last season. No one expected much from Beasley beyond a decent bench spark, but what we got is an all-time three-point shooting clinic this year. He's making 12.3 point attempts per 75 possessions. So that's the second most in the league. 6.9 threes made per 75 possessions. Number one in the NBA. 255 made threes, 46% on transition threes, and nearly 40% on off-screen threes. Those aren't just good numbers, that's literally historically elite shooting. Beasley is stretching the floor so dramatically that defenses are forced to pick their position every single time Cade or anyone else tries, because you're going to have to stay home on a guy that's shooting this well. The Pistons shot just 33% as a team last year. They're almost 36% now. A 3% jump might seem minor, but in the NBA, that difference is everything. Suddenly the lanes are clearer. Cade is driving into single coverages instead of triple teams all the time, being clogged in the paint, and other shooters like Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris are feasting on these open looks, punishing defenses for helping off the perimeter. Improving their three-point shooting has unlocked this offense and has unlocked a large part of what Cade Cunningham does this year. Floor spacing is arguably the most important aspect to an offense, because in this new modern era, if you don't have at least even decent floor spacing, good luck trying to win games in the playoffs. And to be fair, the Detroit Pistons are not a high-octane offense like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're only ranked 8th team, but they're decent enough and producing enough to win basketball games, and offense isn't even their biggest hallmark for this team. Since February 9th, Detroit boasts a defensive rating of 104.3. That's number one in the league in that period. They've turned every game into some sort of street fight, smothering teams in the half-court, ball-hawking ball handlers, and then outrunning them in transition when they create turnovers. In fact, no team protects the paint or ignite the breaks like Detroit lately. The Pistons now lead the NBA in opponents' points in the paint allowed and are number one in fast break points scored since the deadline. Defense is a concentrated team effort. If you don't have good communication on the defensive end and the personnel, you're just not going to be a good defensive team. Luckily, the Pistons have both. Actually, they have even more than that with Ausar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart. And I'm going to start with Ausar Thompson because he arguably is the best wing defender in the NBA. Yeah, I said it. If you guys are watching consistent enough Pistons games, you will see it. He's not just good, he's legitimately elite on the defensive end, constantly locking down the opposing team's best perimeter players. He's averaging nearly 3 steals per game over the last month and has completely disrupted one of the league's best offenses in the last few weeks, the Boston Celtics. Man, you need to go back and look at the film because the way Ausar Thompson was able to put clamps on Jason Tatum was special. It was he who spearheaded their defensive onslaught, 5 steals that game, countless deflections, and relentless pressure on Jason Tatum. And Isaiah Stewart, who's mainly their rim protector, even though he comes off the bench, most people know him as the crash out who makes legendary meme moments. But if you actually watch Pistons games, you realize this guy is a critical piece of the puzzle. Remember when Toumani Camara dunked on Isaiah Stewart and everybody was getting their jokes off on him? He actually had 5 blocks that game. Stewart's impact doesn't always show up on the box score, but he's the type of player you hate playing against but love to have on your team. His presence is felt defensively every single game, anchoring the paint, challenging shots, and altering drives to the rim. It has a lot to do with his strength because he's extremely strong and has a non-stop motor, just walling up people on his drives and absorbing that contact to deter shots at the rim. He's always the one calling out coverages, diving for loose balls, and making that rotation that forces a miss with someone else to rebound. I mean, Detroit's defense has consistently been far better with him on the floor than when he's out. Their defensive rating balloons to an ugly 119.6 when he's not on the floor. So when he's in the game, you know it. I know he has a lot of crash out moments, but Isaiah Stewart is a really, really good basketball player. And you really should tune into Detroit Pistons games to watch how he impacts the game. And the reason why you should tune into these games because they put it all together with Cade Cunningham's leap, adding Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris to add more offensive threats to a very poor offensive team, and an elite defensive structure with your head guys being Ausar Thompson, Stewart, and Ron Holland. Pistons become one of the NBA's best defensive teams. It wasn't just one piece, it was the combination of all the talents being put together and meshing well enough to be the team that they are now. I mean, to put it plainly, they've completely rewritten their identity. This isn't the same franchise that was a league-wide joke last year. The Pistons squad is for real and they're just getting started. And with that in your mind, make sure you check out this full video on Ausar Thompson because yes, I also made a video on Ausar Thompson. And before you leave, make sure you drop a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that post notification bell, and your boy Dream Hoops is out, man. Peace.